So this is a story that is actually 3 stories told as one, and it's the story of the Pied Piper. A song you could dance to. In the mountains, there's a town. It's far from every other town. It's a beautiful town, and Mark has been living in that town all of his life. His family has lived there for generations, and in the autumn, the leaves fall from the trees, and it looks like that town could be on any postcard. And it's the perfect town. It's the perfect scene. But when you live in the middle of nowhere, things get boring quick, and you can see up the mountain the one road coming into town as it winds down. And as Mark was out raking his leaves, he looked up, and there was a figure, a lone figure, walking down the road towards the town. And you could see the man from here because he was wearing pied colors. He was all in bright colors. Wonder if he's a musician or a storyteller or a juggler. Oh, it's been a long time since we've had one of those. He's obviously not a merchant. He has no cart behind him. And Mark's neighbor piped up, I hope it's a musician. I like them. I love it when musicians come. It's been a long time. And we've had to listen to George's daughter on her violin, and man, she squeaks all the time. As the man made his way down, it took hours to work down that road, and the further down he came, the more people gathered in the streets, excited and waiting. This was as good as a circus coming into a big city. Everyone waiting for something new for this unknown man. He was the entertainment of the afternoon. What will he do? What will he be? And everyone had a guess. Everyone was excited. What could he be? What could he do? When the man finally strolled up, he had a bag on his back and a distant look in his eyes. His hair was wild and crazy, and the patchwork was insane, and some of it barely stuck together. And the man came and stopped in the street, and he looked around. Mark had the feeling he wasn't looking at anyone there. He looked around, he reached in that pack, and he pulled out the most beautiful flute that anyone had ever seen. It looked like it was made of diamond. It shone in the dying light of the sun like fire. And the man put it to his mouth as if he was kissing a lover. And he started to play. And as he played, the song was so lovely and so upbeat that everyone started to dance along, and even the wind started moving the branches of the trees as if they were belly dancers, each and every one of those leaves. This is wonderful. This is just what we needed. This is a great way to bring in the fall. That was his first thought. Everyone was dancing, and their voices, the laughter, somehow seemed to become part of the song. The lyrics of the song were the children laughing and the people calling out in excitement. The musician kept playing. Several hours passed, and of course, people got tired and they wanted to stop and sit down, but their bodies would not listen. They could not stop. The shouting and happy laughing, it became nervous. There were questions. Musician, can you stop? Please stop. And now the song changed, and it got harsh and sharp and flat and turns and back and forth, but it was still beautiful. And Mark got horrified. Hey, musician! But the man seemed to attend to nothing there, and the song played on, and the more they shouted, the more intensely he played. He was not stopping. They could not stop, and he played all night, and as he did through the night, you could hear bodies falling from exhaustion. Are you all right? You could hear people crying, my son is dead! My son is dead! And it became part of the song, and he played and played on. And in the morning, the last one left alive, the one dying on the ground, was Mark, looking around at all the bodies like leaves crumpled up. Why? The musician took the flute down, put it back in the bag. His mind seemed somewhere else. Why? No answer came. The man turned around and went back up the road, headed to the next town and the next song. Practice makes perfect. Refrain. Beth was lively and sweet. She danced all the time. There was music in her head, and she loved to dance. She fell in love with a boy who played the flute. His name was Seth. His parents were leather workers in the village. They made boots. And he was supposed to be apprenticing to his father to make boots. But he hated it. He hated pounding holes in the leather. His fingers wanted to make notes, not thump, 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 thump. He hated the scent of leather. He hated feet. He hated boots. Music was his heart and soul. And Beth, when the two got to know each other, they were two pieces of a whole. He was the music and she was the movement. And one day when he was supposed to be in there making boots, and she was supposed to be working in a shop, the two ducked away and into the woods they went to do their favorite thing, her to dance and him to play. And there she found a spot she liked it. It was a stage. There were little white mushrooms all around in a circle. It makes a perfect stage. And so there he sat beneath the tree playing his flute. She said, "Play me a new song, play me a new song, play me one I've never heard before." And he closed his eyes and he thought about that. And as he played, she spun around. His eyes were closed. He was in the song, so he did not notice when the crunching of her feet stopped and there was silence. When he got done, he expected to hear her laugh, expected her to jump into his arms and kiss him as she usually did. He opened his eyes and looked around. "Where are you? Beth? Beth? Beth!" He stepped into the circle of mushrooms. "Beth!" And the next thing he knew, he was standing on an obsidian floor in a dark room with lamps upon the wall that screamed and cried. And there were mad creatures there and a fountain made of the bones of a swan that cried blood in front of him. And he, "Ah! I'm having a nightmare. I must have fallen asleep. This has got to be a dream. This has got to be a dream." And he backed into something that had sharp spines, and all of a sudden he was bleeding, and the blood dripped down to the floor. "Beth? Beth, where are you? Beth?" The monsters around him laughed. The ones in front, the short ones, the ugly ones, had caps that were red and dripping blood. "God, what is this place?" And the crowd parted, and at the far end of the room there was a throne, and sitting on it was a woman, a corpse, in a tattered wedding dress. It was more like a puppet than anything else, and sitting on its knee was another puppet, a little wizened boy with skin that was pale blue. He looked rather unsettling, like the kind of child that would set fire to a rose just because he could, or that would probably stomp on you and throw you out a window if he was strong enough, if it was high enough, to hear you scream on the way down. Seth realized something was wrong. It's got to be a nightmare. It's got to be a nightmare. It's got to be a nightmare. But the lady on the throne spoke. "You seek someone. We had a visitor earlier. She was sweet. She ran very nicely. My red caps had much fun. They caught her, though. Her day is done. She made one wish that she need not fear any more, and so now she is a fountain. Do you like her much?" Wait, the fountain? The fountain? Beth? No, that can't be Beth. No. Give her back. Where is she? What kind of joke is this? I want Beth back. Well, then play us a song. You have a little flute. Play us a song. And he played, and his head was all mixed up, so the notes all went wrong, and he sounded terrible, and everything there laughed, and the more afraid he got, the more they fed. Fear is a lovely thing to an Unseelie Court. They were feasting while he was freaking. Finally, she moved her hand, and the court went silent. "Look, I see you are not up to the task yet. But you want her back. What would you give?" "Anything. Anything. That's my Beth. She dances to my song. I play for her. Give her a gift. And the little guy got up off her lap, little Jack, and little Jack came prancing around him, and he realized this was no human boy, this mad little creature. And he snatched the flute away and broke it, and a moment later, out of nothing, produced a flute that he handed to him. And Seth went, oh, this is made of ice. This is cold. But then the boy reached out and grabbed his arms, and something changed. Seth couldn't say what, but something changed in Seth when the boy did that. And the boy, with a smile as if he had just done a good joke, went running back to his mother's knee and sat down again. Play now, play now. The flute was no longer cold, and Seth played a song of loss and grief, of longing for a love that's gone missing, that should be there, and of all insanity. And the song is one that if you were to hear it, it would drive you mad in a moment, but by God, that court loved it. They sang with it, they screamed with it, and the queen said, I will give you your Beth back on the day that you can play a song on this flute well enough that we all dance to it. When your song is strong enough that we cannot but help stand and dance on that day, you may have your true love back. And they made him patchwork clothes, and they sent him out into the world. And the one thing his addled mind will never know, he will never age. He is half man and half something else now. And he's wandering even now, finding songs and towns to play to. Sing with me. The siren stood at the edge of the rocky cliff. The storm overhead was fierce, and the waves were throwing themselves back and forth across each other as if they were in a death match of wrestling. Oh, sisters, there'll be no ships to sink today. None will come out in this. I wanted a life to take today. 100, 200 would have been fine. And the sisters were restless. One of the sisters turned behind. Oh, sisters, sisters, look. Coming down the cliff face was a man in pied colors, coming down carefully amongst the rocks. It's but one man, but one is better than none. We shall feast on him today. What song should we sing? What song, sisters? And the three consulted with each other, watching him come in the distance. Sharp teeth, sharp eyes, sharp hearts, ready to rip this mortal apart. The man stopped about 20 yards away from them. He glanced at them for a moment. He bowed, and out he pulled a flute that was made of diamond. The sun was nowhere to be seen on a day like this. It had hung its head and gone home and hid behind the clouds. As he took that flute and raised it, the girls got ready to sing, thinking this would be even more fun. Let him play a little, and then we'll dash him on the rocks. But as he played, they found themselves drawn into the song, needing to sing with him. And it was so beautiful. They sang better than they had ever sang in their entire lives. These immortal creatures, thriving on death and destruction, singing of their glories and of the days gone by when they could take the ships by the hundreds. And then the song got melancholy, and the notes went flat, and the song reminded them that those days had passed, and that now, once in a while, a ship might come by, and they might, the rocks can do without them. The rocks sink the ships as often as the girls do, more often lately. And they realize the minute that musician goes, they'll never sing this well again, and there's no one to hear them singing like this. And the more dark his song got, the darker their thoughts got, the darker their hearts got. And by the end of it, they pulled the rocks up, and their dance was a dance to the death, as they cut their own throats and their blood painted the water around them. And when the last one cried her last tear into the sea, he put the flute away. Soon I'll be ready for you, and I will take you. I will have my love. But the image in his mind had shifted in all the years of travel. The image in his mind he had now was of that tattered bride sitting there waiting for him. That was who he sought.